Hello and welcome to the Sparkle and Thrive podcast. I am very excited today because we are interviewing one of my work colleagues who also happens to be a TechPixies alumni and really the person behind the brand. So Lisa Mellis, I am so excited you're here. Thank you for joining me.
Great to be here.
We have a long history together now. You came into the program through the cohort system when we were doing the cohort system. And then you applied for a job after you finished your program to be the social media manager for TechPixies, which is exactly what we hired you for, to start out as the social media manager. And then we've progressed you quite a lot into different roles, etc. But you've landed in this brand manager role for TechPixies, and it suits you really, really well. And when we, what I love about you is when we decided last minute, we're going to rebrand the whole Social Media Supercharge, which was our free training. We're going to rebrand it as the Social Media Superhero Bootcamp, which you had to pay to join. And we wanted to really give it a whole new look and feel. And we wanted to change the content of it and everything. And you were just like ready to go. And you were able to produce just the most beautiful images and the most beautiful backgrounds. And it really kind of brought power to our Social Media Superhero Bootcamp, which of course we're talking about superpowers. So it was really, really perfect. And I've just seen you work over the years, and I've seen you come into the person you are now. And I just wanted to do an interview with you about clarity, because I think when you came in to our program, you didn't know what you wanted to do, but you knew what you were done doing. So let's talk about when you came into the program, what were you doing that you knew, I'm done with this. I don't want to do this anymore. It doesn't work for me. And I want to change a direction.
Well, I think you're talking to the right person if you want to talk about clarity, because I have really been through the mill actually with changing careers, and I've got quite a few different stories of different careers that I've been in and things that I've tried that haven't worked and all that kind of thing. So I can tell you my story. I can start from the beginning. Do you want
Go
the long
for it? We love stories here at TechPixies.
Or do you want the really long version?
Go for it.
So I've been teaching for a long time. I sort of just fell into teaching really because I started off doing art and design, painting basically. And so from there, teaching is always sort of like a steady career. So I sort of just fell into that and just sort of kept on with it. But sort of realized along the line that I've been less and less happy with it throughout the years. And I know that there are people that are born teachers, and I can do teaching, don't get me wrong, I can teach, but I'm not a born teacher, if you know what I'm saying. And anyway, so I was teaching in a school eventually that failed Ofsted. And I can talk about it because the school doesn't even exist anymore because it's folded. But and I don't know if if we have any teachers or anyone's been around or have much experience with Ofsted, but it became incredibly stressful. So you'd have Ofsted inspectors around from breakfast till, nighttime, and it was not nighttime, but time to go home. And it was incredibly stressful. And I remember one time looking out my window and I could see an Ofsted inspector there looking at his watch. And they had a line of kids behind him ready to come in. And they were all wired, like kids often are. And I just burst into tears. And I just thought to myself, I can't do this. I don't know what I'm doing. And so, he was coming in to inspect the lesson. And it took me sort of a good 10, 15 minutes to calm myself. And my assistant said, well, I'll go outside and I'll tell him to go. But that was one of the starting points of realizing that career wasn't for me, and it was a difficult one. And I decided from that point that I would go and do an MA in graphic arts, because I thought it was all the things that I was interested in. I quite naively thought, I'm going to be a graphic designer. I'm going to go there. I'm going to do this course, and magically I'm going to become a graphic designer. Like, that's going to solve all my problems.
I also love the fact that you thought getting a master's degree was going to solve all your problems as well.
Yeah. So I thought, well,
nothing against master's degrees. It's just that it's interesting. It's interesting the choices we make.
You feel like it's a given. You feel like, well, I've reached this certain point now, and people will just flock to me. But it doesn't work like that. And I didn't. Well, I guess for some people it does, but it didn't work like that for me. It was great doing it, and I learned masses, but it's, you know, getting another degree, I would say getting another degree is not the only way, you know. And I remember you, Joy, talking about a story about when you were bartending, or you were trying to get a bartending job. Well, I've got a similar thing, because I decided to get a cleaning job whilst I was doing my MA to get a bit more extra money together. And I remember one day this guy coming up to me, and he said, I was just minding my own business, just cleaning, you know, and he came up to me and he said, well, can you hoover a bit more enthusiastically? He said, he said, I know it's not your dream job or anything, but can you just give it a bit more effort? And I remember thinking to myself, I have 3 degrees. I have 3 degrees and I'm being told that I can't hoover correctly. You know, it was just bad times. And so anyway, I tried loads and loads of different things. Mostly I fell back on supply. I was always coming back to supply because it was
teaching.
Yeah, supply teaching, sorry, because it's so sort of familiar and it's very easy to get back in, and you go for this school for 3 months, you go to that school for 3 months, you can dip in and out, and that was kind of like, the money wasn't great, but it was enough to sort of tide me over. But I think the way that you're made to feel as a supply teacher, as a human, is pretty bad. I mean, you feel very transparent. You feel like people can't see you when you're at work, and no one's going to say, hey Lisa, how was your morning, how's your weekend, you know, that kind of thing. You're nothing. And there was one time at lunchtime, there was this woman who was chatting away, and she was making her lunch, and then she tried to walk through me with her pot noodle and spilt it all down me, because I realized then how invisible I felt at work. It was very much like, she's talking to one of her colleagues, blah, 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 and you're nothing, you're just the shadow that's in and out, you know. So it was a difficult one. But I tried loads of different things. I went to lecturing because I thought, oh, lecturing might be a bit better than teaching. That might be more suitable, you know, people talk about it.
Armed with your master's degree.
Armed with my master's degree, yeah, I'm gonna do lecturing, and that's gonna be much better. And then found that it was exactly the same politics, really. It was just in a different dressing, but it was all the same salad. So yeah, I wasn't keen on that. Oh, and also another thing, this was one of the reasons why I left. They said to me, oh, it's really exciting, you're getting to interview I won't mention the name of the place I work. You're going to get to interview the new students coming in. And I was like, oh, okay. So they said it's going to be from about 6 o'clock till 8 p.m. every evening. And I was like, so this is overtime? They were like, no, this is part of your job. So I was like, well, okay, but that means I'm going to have to be doing, you know, twice the amount of work, you know, and I'll have to stay late every night. And they said, and so I said, so is it important I do it so that actually some of the students, you know, you get to choose who goes on your course? They said, no, everybody gets accepted. So it was just a dressing up way of making me do more admin. And I was like, I'm not having that. And so I left. But yeah, it was not, it's just the way people make you use your time, particularly as so, not everyone, but sometimes as teaching staff, it can be really difficult with the way they use your time. Then I decided I wanted to leave teaching. I had no real direction. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I really, what I should have done is taken stock and thought to myself, these are your skills. This is what everything you've done so far. This is what you're good at. This is what you enjoy. I wasn't doing any of that. I was in desperation mode. So I was applying for everything. And some of the jobs I applied for were completely unsuitable. So I applied to be an air traffic controller. True story. This is a genuine story. And I also applied for MI5. Genuinely true. And the air traffic controller one, they had this sort of simulator that you had to try and, I mean, they were trying to see whether you could control the planes, so the dots were coming sort of, you know, from different angles, and mine were just crashing into each other, all all angles, and they swiftly got rid of me out, out of that process. But yeah, I mean, you've got to try these things. But the MI5 one, I actually got through a few of the processes for that one, and but then I got kicked out on the stage where you had to actually kind of go in and do the simulator bit, actually do the job. But yeah, that was very interesting. She used to get emails that would self-destruct. They would literally like time out. Yeah, it was fascinating. But so yeah, I honestly, I went through so many different things. I tried, I was driving cars for a bit. I was driving people's used cars from one bit to another. I was volunteering for doing DIY. I thought maybe I'd want to sort of renovate, because I'm quite good at DIY. So I thought maybe I want to go and renovate houses or something. But I mean, it became just like a running joke, though. I was becoming a running joke because all my friends were like, "Oh, what are you doing now?" Yeah, but and then I sort of came to my senses and thought, well, you know, I went to see a careers guidance counsellor as well, who said, so maybe you should try and get a job in a school doing their graphic design, you know. And I thought, well, that's actually, you know, or in education doing graphic design. So I applied for lots of those kind of jobs, but didn't really get anywhere fast, really. I found the whole searching for jobs and job applications bit absolutely soul destroying, to be honest. You know, you'd spend, there's a couple of companies who I won't mention, but there was a couple of companies that gave me so many different aptitude tests, and you'd spend a week, 2 weeks on a job application. I was telling some TechPixies about this the other day and how I boycotted their products and I wouldn't buy them anymore. And then I've forgiven them now and changed my mind. But it's, you know, weeks and weeks and weeks of application, and then they just send you a sort of, well, they just disappear, to be honest. You don't get a sort of, well, thanks for your effort, and you know, you weren't successful on this occasion. You think, God, I put weeks and weeks into my life into that, and making documents and all that kind of thing. So yeah, it was really hard. And then I always kept going back to supply teaching, and I remember sitting in my car looking at the TechPixies website on my phone, just sitting there looking at it, ready to go into work, and just kind of going, no, maybe it's not for me. I don't know, you know. And I kept coming back to it and just kept sort of.
How did you hear about it?
I Googled it. So I couldn't understand where to go. I didn't know where to go, what to do. And I really, when I say I was desperate, I really was desperate, because, you know, it's just such a horrible way to live. And I Googled, I remember thinking to myself, how do women do it? Like my sister, she's had children and she's gone straight back into a job. I thought, how do women get back to work after they've had a career break? So I must have Googled something along those lines, and then TechPixies came up. And then I thought, well, social media, that does suit me. That suits me a lot, you know, with the graphic design. I think it's a really good, you know, marriage made in heaven, really.
It's a very powerful combination, graphic design and social media, for sure.
I think it works. And that sort of clicked really in a way. But you'd sent me an email. Well, the company had sent me an email.
So that was probably me at that point.
I think it probably was, yeah.
I was doing emails until very, very recently.
When I got the TechPixies job, I was curious, and I went back and looked at my emails, and I thought, which email was it that made me decide to do the course? Well, the webinar, actually. It was a webinar back then. But you'd sent an email saying, "Are you lost?" And that's all it said. And I clicked on that one.
And note to self, we got to bring that email back.
Right? Because I said, are you lost? Yes. Yeah. Yes, I'm so lost. And yeah, you've got me with that. That was the one that hooked me in. And then I joined the.
You had me at "Are you lost?"
You had me at "Are you lost?" And I joined the webinar, straight away off the back of that, I was like, that's, which is very unlike me to do. And I kept saying to myself, it seemed very unlike me to join TechPixies in a way. I don't know, I can't really make sense of that, but it was just, it was meant to be, I think, in many ways. Well, definitely meant to be. Yeah, so I remember because then I was going to a family wedding, and I remember throughout this, I mean, I'm sure it was school holidays or something like that, but I remember emailing you constantly throughout that wedding. You might not remember, but going, am I definitely going to get a job off the back of this? You know, wanting guarantees, like, what am I going to get? How am I going to get there? You know, can you promise me? Can you promise me? Like, you know, kind of that kind of thing. Not in so many words, but that was what I was saying. You know, if I join this course, this is my last resort. I need
to work
happen. Yeah. And you never gave me sort of like, you can't say to somebody, yes, you'll definitely get a job off the back of this. And you never gave me those sorts of definite responses, but you just sort of said, I think that like you said just now, you'll have a powerful toolkit, you'll have a powerful skill set that you can move forward. I don't think I realized at that time the power of the community as well, that would change, that changed everything. I mean, do you know what? I mean, I'm being very honest here, but like when at first joining the WhatsApp group and joining the group on Facebook, I was like, I'm not sure if this is necessary. I mean, I'm joining a course, but I don't know if I don't need to join the group. I don't need to do that. I can't believe now that I was thinking in that kind of way. But
yeah, because our program, just for those of you who might be listening to the podcast who aren't familiar with the TechPixies program, we have the boot camp, which is a week-long experience, but it's fully emerged with a Facebook group, and then also live teaching. And then we have the 90-day transformational program, which is live teaching, which also there is a pre-recorded curriculum there for people to go through at their own pace, but the live coaching ties into the curriculum. And then we also have this unbelievably beautiful community of people, and we have the alumni and the current students all mixed together. So when the current students have questions, it's wonderful because the alumni who've been in their shoes have the answers, and when they were students, the alumni helped them. So we've always had this, and that was the difference for me. An online course, I had always bought those cheap online courses, never started them. And then the very first online course that I purchased that was a premium price, if you will, was Amy Porterfield's Digital Course Academy. And when you spend that much money on something, you feel like you've got to show up and you've got to actually participate and you've got to get your money's worth. Where it's, if you spend 10 pounds on a course or 100 pounds on a course, you might not feel like you need to do that. But when you're spending, 1,500, 2,000, 3,000, et cetera, then you do feel like you've got to actually get your money's worth. And so, but she did that. She had live teaching, she had community, and that's what she teaches, is how to do that. And that was a game changer for us in terms of really connecting with the students. And we've gone even further now. We used to just teach on Facebook and do kind of Q&A where people could talk in the chat. And we still do that with our progression, which is the membership that people do after they finish Social Media Magic. But we switched to Zoom so that people could see each other's faces, so that they could do breakout rooms, they could connect on a real deep level. And it makes such a huge difference for people. We have people in our community who've said, I've never felt part of a community before, and they feel fully loved and integrated in ours. And I love that.
And then, quite often things like jobs got posted on there. And I'd actually think to myself, rather than thinking negatively, I think, God, I think I might actually stand a chance with something like that, and I'd had a couple of people start contacting me and saying, oh yeah, we should network, we should meet up. And I went to Oxford a couple of times and met with, it wasn't a good fit necessarily, but it was just interesting to have I was starting to have conversations that just hadn't happened before, and just being able to actually see a positive outcome, but I was to say I was thrilled to get the TechPixies job is underestimating it. I was mind blown. And it's funny, really, because I remember you always used to be like, tell us more about it, tell us how you got the job, tell us your story. I couldn't do it in a way because I think I felt a little bit like I don't want to be. I do think it's imposter syndrome. I was like, I don't want to be exposed. I don't want to be like, I don't want anyone to take this away from me. I was a very kind of like. Sometimes I used to think I can't even remember what my job title is, which is so silly.
Well, I'll tell a story about you that I love. So what happened with TechPixies, people have known the story for a long time. They know what happened, but for those of you who don't know the story, I'll just get you up to speed. At the end of 2017, I was totally wiped out. I was, I knew we were going to have to let people go in order to keep moving forwards. I didn't have the cash to keep the business going. And we were working at that time with small groups of people face to face in both London and Oxford. And so I was super stretched thin trying to like be in both places. And, I was, like you said, Lisa, I was doing the emails, and I did have someone working on social media, but she had left to get her dream job at the time, which was social media for another company, which was great because that's what we want. We've always said we want people to like come into TechPixies on the team and, get their wings and then fly to the next destination if that's what's in there. If that's part of their trajectory, if that's part of what they're supposed to do, then we want them to do that. And so, we were in a position where the one employee that I had kept on after I made all of the layoffs, she had got this really great job that she'd always wanted. And so it was great for her to go and do that. And we really needed someone because that was the one thing I knew it needed time and effort. And I couldn't do that and run the business and do all the emails, etc. So interestingly enough, that was one of the very first positions that we hired for when we raised money, because I just knew it was an important position. I think social media is an important position for every company because every company needs social media, but particularly when you teach social media, you need your social media to be up to a certain standard. And we needed someone who was trained with our methodology as well, which is why I was super keen to get someone to come out of our program. But it's very interesting because we interviewed several people, and I am so glad I had one of our investors who was a CMO at a previous company and built that company up from nothing to this huge company. So she was very, very good with interviews, and she's actually been one of the key people in our company who has sat in on interviews and really helped me pick the right people. And when she's been in on those interviews, it's made a huge difference. And you walked into this interview, we'd interviewed a bunch of people at that. This was a very hot job because obviously it was a social media job. It was with TechPixies. So, people knew they were going to get a supportive environment. It was a positive environment, et cetera. One of the things you had already that stood out was your graphic design skills. And that was something we definitely were missing big time in the company at that point. It was like me and, Canva and like a palette, and we had the TechPixies logo, which if you're watching, you can see it. That was actually built by a student, which was amazing. And she was unfortunately one of the people I had to let go when I had to let people go because we just didn't have the budget for a graphics person, right? So I really had no one on graphics. I had no one on social media. And I had really no one at that point supporting me because everyone was on, I had to let everybody go. So rebuilding the team, that was really scary for me because, I had built up a team once and I had let the team go. And there was something horrible in my gut that was like, well, what if we hire people, and then we have to let them go again? And because I can't get my act together as a business owner, right? Because I felt like I'd let everybody down. But the interesting thing is everyone who I did let go, they said to me, we want the vision to survive. Like our jobs will be fine. And they are all fine. Everyone that I let go, they've actually got great jobs. A couple of them have great jobs in tech companies and things like that, really doing cool stuff. And that was right for them in the end. But it was so interesting how that happened. But anyway, not to get sidetracked too much, you walk into the room and you had, I think you had like braids, you had like pigtail braids, and then you had this bright yellow dress. Like there was no missing you, and like a handbag that matched and shoes that matched. And what was so interesting is, what we needed in the business was this pop of color. And then this pop of color walked in, and it was you. And you know, and then you were funny, and you're very funny. Those of you who don't know Lisa, she's hilarious. You post jokes on her jokes on her Facebook feed crack me up. So she is very funny, and you know, you're very, I mean, I've actually always thought you'd be a wonderful comedian or an actress of some kind, or an actor, I should say, because we don't use actress anymore, you know, but she's got all the skills, right? And so and we knew that you were kind of new with social media because you just finished our course, but we also knew you had this secret weapon, which was the graphic design, which we really needed. And Sarah knew we really needed that too. So anyway, when you walked out, she said, I would get stuck on a bus with that girl overnight. You know, it was like, and that's become one of the interesting questions that we ask ourselves is like, would we want to be, you know, like if we were going on a trip and then the trip got delayed and we got stuck in the airport overnight, like, would we want to be stuck in the airport with this person overnight? 100 times. Like, you know, we would have so much fun. And I just know that, you know, you would sing for us, you would dance for us, you would entertain us. I mean, you're just a fun person. So it was really interesting when she asked me that question, like, you know, would you go on a long bus ride with this person? Would you go on a road trip with this person? And it's like, yeah, we would, because it would be so much fun.
It might become insufferable.
Well, we haven't tested it out yet, but I think what was really great was you came in and you just rolled with it, right? And the role wasn't a huge role, and over time it's changed and expanded, and you know, you've been able to adapt as we've brought in social media managers to take over social media, as we brought in copywriters to take over the copy.
Yeah.
And this is interesting too, because you know, one of the things that we found was that you, like, copy wasn't your thing.
It's difficult because I know for me, my dyslexia makes that side of it difficult. And I know for me, dyslexia makes sometimes my ability to have fluid speech not great. For lots of people, I'm not saying that, you know, if you have dyslexia, you're not going to be good at copywriting at all, because I'm sure there are plenty. But for me, it's not where my skill set is, no.
Which was interesting because I think we didn't know we were dyslexic when you came into the role, which is typical. Like, I think a lot of people who are dyslexic, they don't want to say that they're dyslexic because they don't want to rule themselves out of a job.
No.
And it was interesting because the reason that I needed someone to take over the emails was because I am dyslexic.
Well, it's probably a good idea you didn't know then. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so funny because, well, and my mother will say, you're not dyslexic, but I have done some testing as an adult. I know I'm moderately dyslexic, particularly when it comes to, it's called actually dyscalculation. So it's like dates and times. I really can't do those. And anyone who's ever tried to organize a date and a time thing with me will know I get that wrong almost 100% of the time. One time we were planning I flew out to the US with my baby daughter, who was like 4 months old. And we were planning this party that Tim was going to be at. And my mom planned all of these people to come. And it turns out I screwed up on the date that Tim was arriving. And he was arriving the day the party was, but instead of arriving at like 10 a.m., he was arriving at 10 p.m. And then he ended up arriving at like 4 a.m. because there was a delay on his plane. And anyway, you know, the whole thing could have been avoided if I didn't have this issue with dates and times, because I wouldn't have given them the wrong date and time, because I really physically can't see the dates and times. It's very hard for me. So it was, and forget directions, like forget getting in a car, like pre-GPS, it was
I'm the same, yeah,
disaster.
But I mean, I've lost jobs, actually. I mean, this is going back away before sat navs, but I've lost jobs because I've turned up like 2 hours late because I can't find it.
Yeah. Well, I can't. I'm very bad if I go somewhere I've never been before. I have, and I know how to fix it. I just have to leave early. I have to pre-plan the trip. I have to know what I'm doing. Very often I'll put in like the wrong city on the wrong side of the country. I mean, one time I ended up on a train to Wales, and I was like, I don't think this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm pretty sure Cardiff is not the destination that I want to be on. But just coming back, but this is very good conversation, because I think a lot of people who are dyslexic, and I know people are much more severely dyslexic than I am, but a lot of people who are dyslexic, like you, like me, Pip is also dyslexic. She works on our team. They feel like they have to hide that. They feel like they have to protect that. And sometimes they feel like I'm never going to get a job that really works for me because
Yeah.
I've got this, kind of problem, handicap, whatever, which here's the thing that I've turned that around. So many of the creatives that I know, like the super really creative people that I know, and really very successful people that you read about, many of them are dyslexic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's like anything, you've got a lot of heightened skills because of that. I don't know why, but I think for me, I may not speak or write that cohesively in my head. I don't think I do, but I am very logical, and I can do things like DIY without taking measurements, without making a plan.
I never read instructions. I'm not sure if that serves me well.
No, but no, I don't. Well, yeah, like when I built my fencing, I was just be able to sort of visualize it without having to, make any sort of measurements and plans. So it is in many ways it's a skill.
Well, I'm looking at a list of famous dyslexics. So you've got Orlando Bloom, Richard Branson, Tom Cruise, Leonardo da Vinci, Walt Disney, Jim Carrey, Albert Einstein. Now they're missing a few ladies on here.
Yeah.
But we know that there are Jennifer Aniston, Steven Spielberg, Whoopi Goldberg. These are actors. Muhammad Ali, right? So John Irving, Jay Leno. I mean, there's lots of people. Keira Knightley. There you go. So
I think acting with the memory must be, I don't know how they do that, because I would never be able to memorize a set of lines. I mean, I always found
I can't memorize a set of lines.
No, and I find interviews excruciating, like actually job interviews excruciating, because trying to remember all the things that you need to say and all the things that they are wanting to hear, and quite often, especially teaching jobs, they just want to hear those words so they can tick it off a list, and you've just got to memorize it all. So I just don't know how they do it, really.
So let's talk about where you are now.
Yes.
Because you've come a long way, and you are now head of brand at TechPixies. So you're in charge of, making sure everything looks on brand. From our mugs, I've been sipping out of my mug. You worked really well with Karen Lemke to create these mugs that go to our alumni. Our fab box, which is just behind me here.
Oh yeah, I have mine.
Oh, she's got her fab box. Yeah, look at that. But it's not just the thing people don't realize is, like, if you look at the fab box really closely, there's so many details on it. It's, there's designs on the back, on the side, and everything else. But you make sure that our design on our Instagram feed, and that it flows through to all of our other networks, and then of course all of our slides. So we've revamped our entire slide system. When I first started out, it was like a blue and white background, with pictures I grabbed off the internet and lots of text. And, we really changed that and brought in some very creative ways of introducing diversity into our slides, by having different color hands and different color, people, everything else in it. So, I really, I love what you're doing with the brand. One of the things that we did for you was you asked me, can I do this portrait course? And of course, at TechPixies, we do pay for our team to get upskilled on different things. And I loved what you were able to do with that portrait course. So tell us about that.
I just think it's always really important to just keep things fresh and trying new things. I think TechPixies is very, very good at that. I can't take credit for all the brand. It's an amalgamation of loads of people. I've got to listen really carefully to what people are saying, but it's everybody's else's thoughts and ideas, so it might have been something that you've said, or things that the team have said, that then become sort of solidified in the brand in a way. But what I like about TechPixies is you do keep me on my toes. Like the superhero course. Wow, I don't know where that came from, because it was literally, I think it was like a Friday or something. I'm like, we're changing the course.
And it was going out on Monday.
Oh my God. But without those kind of little pushes, I think you probably people are creatures of habit, aren't they? I mean, you'd probably just go, oh, just run what we have. I think that's fine. But because, there's always sort of that, I've said this before, like TechPixies, there's always that driving force moving forward. We don't seem to sort of rest on our laurels or just sit and, kind of roll out the same old stuff. It's always constantly changing. And that's not down to me. That's down to you and down to the team.
Oh, it's a team effort, that one.
Yeah. And well, it's always changing.
But let's go back to that moment when you went to go pay for the course and it was a lot of money and put it on your credit card because you didn't want to ask anyone to pay for it for you.
I know what you're going to ask me.
Where would you how's your life different now that you made that decision?
How is my life different? That wasn't the question I thought you were going to ask.
Answer the question I thought I was going to ask. What question was I going to ask?
Yeah, I'll answer. The question I thought you were going to ask is when I was thinking about deciding to go to the course. This is a bit of nonsense. This really is nonsense. Or maybe not. I don't know. It depends what you believe. When I was going to go and pay for the course, because I'd been to the webinar and I'd watched everything and I was trying to decide whether to take the course or not. And I said to myself, I'm going to take the journey down to, I was going to a family wedding, like I said, and I was like, I'll take the journey down just to really solidify my answer, think about whether I'm going to do the course or not, and I'll decide when I get there. And anyway, at the time I was into this thing, which you will have heard me talk about, boring you with before, is a thing called angel numbers.
Oh, I love angel numbers.
So if you, so for example, a friend of mine said to me, I keep noticing that it's 10:10, so every time I look at the clock, it's 10:10. I'm like, well, you maybe want to look up 10:10 and see what it says. And I was like driving people nuts with this, going like, oh yeah, no, it's really, it's an important thing. And I really believe in it. And I've had things happen since, actually. So, it could be something in it. And so I'd driven all the way down trying to decide whether I was going to take the TechPixies course. And then when I got to the hotel, quite often angel numbers are like repeated numbers. So when I got to the hotel, the number was 222. And I was like, oh, I actually gasped when they gave me the key. I was like, oh. So I thought, right, I'm going to look it up. And when I looked it up, it said, you're exactly in the right place at the right time. Go for it.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So that's what it said. So I was like, and I'm not saying I made my decision entirely on that, but I was like, oh, well, I can't ignore that.
I love it.
That was the question I thought you were going to ask. So, yeah, and what the course has done for me, your second question, well, yeah, so I did put the course on my credit card, put the whole lot on. I think if I had asked family, they definitely would have helped me because I've got a lovely family and they would want the best for me. But you just want to do it for yourself. I think if it's something that you really want to do, and I just really wanted to. I just felt like it was something that I needed to do for myself, so I put it on a credit card. Although you're indebted, it is something that I needed to do. So on the credit card, I had, I think, I don't even know how much. Do you know that's really bad? I don't think I could even tot up how much it was. But I know that my largest credit card I've just paid off, I had £3,000 on. And I've literally just paid that off this month. Yeah, I know. I'm so excited about it. But there was and I'd split credit cards over lots of sort of 0% fine. The funny thing is, I don't think you sometimes don't really realize you've got a problem. Actually, some people look at debt as just being like, oh yeah, everyone's got debt. And I remember, so my partner would say, because I'd be like, oh, I'll get this, I'll get these drinks, I'll get that. And she'd say, you've got no money. You're in debt, you've got no money. I was like, I have got money, how rude, but actually, it was a very good point, and one that, she makes a lot of the time, that actually, yeah, if you're really in debt, like, you need to try and get out of it. And Claire Beveridge in the pension gap, when I was watching that. It's which is a really good episode. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head which number it was. She's talking about how, you know, if you're in debt, you need to get out of debt and try to get into, you know, saving money. But it is a hard topic, and it's a hard one to talk about, and it's a hard one, I think, to even think to yourself, how much debt am I actually in? You know, and actually admitting to yourself, how much debt is it, and how, you know, how are you going to get there? But for me, it was just a case of putting it all on 0% and making a plan and a structure to, you know, pay off. And I was paying off a lot every month. Yeah.
It's episode 20.
Episode 20.
Episode 20. And it was called The Pension Gap. Are you, I think it was, are you recklessly cautious with your money?
Yes. Yeah.
But no, that's a really great point. I mean, debt is something that people don't talk about. But what I do know is if you're not earning money properly, like you're not properly earning money, and you know, very often people get into debt. I mean, not because they're sitting there frivolously spending their money on expensive purses and expensive clothes, although that's sometimes how it happens. But very often you can build up debt just because there's not enough income coming in.
Exactly. And also, I mean, I'll say this, you've got to respect yourself as well, because I mean, I was working in a job, so my supply teaching agency changed hands, and they were doing everything to cut costs. They were doing everything they could to get the most out of their employees, but pay them the least amount possible. So what I ended up doing, which I should have just stopped, I should have just respected myself and just not done this anymore. I was working, and so they'd say, we've booked you in for 3 mornings this week. But what they would do is they'd get you to teach all English, math, science, cram it into a morning, and then give the kids a TA with a DVD in the afternoon.
Wow.
And they want all the work marked so that you'd have to stay until about 2 p.m. And by the time you're there from 8 a.m. in the morning, by the time you leave, it's like, could be nearly 3 o'clock. You've worked a full day. Once you take off sort of petrol costs and all the rest of it, probably earns about £40 a day. And so I was getting less than £150 a week, you know, to live off. And I should have just respected myself enough to go, actually, what am I doing? This isn't, and I've worked with people who do this as well. They work for free. So I know that people, especially when I was a lecturer, there would be other lecturers, and I'd be like, what are you doing in? It's your day off. And they'd be like, yeah, but I need to get this work, X, Y, and Z done. I'm like, right, are you gonna put that on your timesheet? No, I'm not gonna put it in my timesheet. Well, maybe you should, like, because actually what it means is if you're working for free, then I have to work for free, you know, like, and everybody else is expected to work for free. Whereas they're, you know, dean of the university is doing all right. You know?
Well, and I think the really important thing here is, and that goes back to what I was saying, is just you have to do something about it, right?
Yeah.
And what I love about what you did was you said, all right, if this is going to work, I'm going to go for it. Then, you know, I'm taking that last, you didn't have the cash to pay for it, but you did put it on a card, but it was almost like that was your promise to yourself that I'm going to make this work so I can pay off the card. And you've done that. And to me, that's really special. And also now you're earning enough money to not only pay for the things you need to pay for, but you're able to pay off the debt that you've built up because you've now got a job you've been in. I don't know how long you've been with us, a couple of years now, at least I'd say.
It'll be coming up for 2 years.
It always feels longer.
No, yeah, it's nearly 2 years.
Nearly
I know, it's
2 years.
Yeah,
nearly 2 years. And that, you know, but you've had a steady job, you've had a steady paycheck, you know what's coming in every month, you've got flexibility, you know, you've just launched a gardening YouTube channel on the side. And so, you know, anyway, I am so glad. I could talk to you forever. And this has been such a great conversation. But, you know, I think what the big message here, and this is really for those, probably mostly for those students who are in the program now, and they're thinking, I don't know where this is going to lead. I don't know what it's going to lead to. And, you know, that was where you were 2.5, 3 years ago. And now you have clarity, and now you have, you know, you've got money in the bank, you've got a plan moving forwards, and you're a very important part of TechPixies and the overall visual of TechPixies, and a key piece of the glue in the organization. So, you know, I'm so thankful that you came through our program, and I'm so thankful that you took that risk, and you know,
here.
but I also think it's important for people to hear this story, because of course TechPixies can't hire everyone who comes to the program.
Yeah.
But we do. Most of the people who work for us have gone through the program. I think we have 17 people right now who work for us, and I think only 1 or 2 didn't go through the program. But so there's always a possibility that there's a job waiting for someone when they finish the program, depending on what there is available. But you didn't come into the program thinking, oh, I'm going to work for TechPixies, but you did end up leaving with clarity and a whole new career. And you know, you've got an extremely employable skill, and you know, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I've been looking at because when you told me to when we're talking about clarity, I'd made some notes, and I've been looking at this book that I've been reading called Zen Habits, and they gave a couple of bits of advice if you want to gain clarity. And one of them is to, I think there's 3 main points, maybe 4. So one of them is to create space. So whatever you want to attract, it's like the law of attraction, whatever you want to have in your life, so you create space for it. So say you want to be an artist, maybe you just actually move your stuff around, you get an easel, you get your stuff together, you know, and actually invite that into your life. Diary and journal, so reflect and meditate on what it is you want. Talk to others, so it's the community, and talk to those around you, and then take action. So it's try everything, just try everything. I mean, I'm not saying become an air traffic controller
or MI5
or MI5 but anyway,
well, I always say that though, inaction is the death of dreams. Yeah. I love what you just said, and it's such a great, like, you know, when you need to find clarity, here's a couple things you can do. That's brilliant. Yeah. Well, thank you, Lisa, for your time. Thank you for being a valued member of our community and our team.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I think this will be a popular podcast, and we'll have to get you back on another time.
Lovely. Thank you so much.